So a quick correction, a change from the Risto rules. The Treaty of Tordesillas event only is a one-time penalty for France and England for having gone into the wrong area, i.e. outside of Europe. Now, they'll pay a penalty every time they establish a colony up until a certain time period, or else if they become Protestant, then they're free to do it. But they don't have to pay a penalty every time they go exploring, which is important because the French got yet another explorer, and well, we'll see. I'll briefly catch you up with the events. Some economic ones playing around. So, for example, Spain gained some cash at percentile dice, 80-something bucks. England lost some. These things just kind of happen at random, right? But now that, and we have a few here, Portugal has an agricultural crisis now. France has diplomatic preeminence, which gives them a bonus on diplomacy as well as colonization. They'd love to use that. They have a location that they've explored here that they could colonize, but you know they're in the middle of a war and probably can't afford it at this point in the game. Later in the game you can do both, or if you're Spain when you're in this earlier period, but not right now. It's hard for Spain right now. Venice got reorganization. They could choose Army or Navy. They chose Army because they're falling so far behind. This will give them +2 to their tech roll, in addition to all their other pluses. It still can only go up 3. If it happens to go up 3, and they get that advance, see that marker's held in place by the Spaniards and the Portuguese here. If they happen to get that 3 and move forward, then what's going to happen is they get an additional, they get to upgrade their army at half price. See an O here, that means the other countries are going to get a growth. That's going to be the Chinese, etc., I believe. Oh no, that's the Orthodox, right? Yeah, that's the Orthodox. The Muslims are not getting a growth for some time, it looks like. Alright, except whatever Turkey pulls them along with. But we started rolling the political events, and the first one I came up with, I've crossed off the old ones, is Event 1. Now that we've had Event 1 already, some of these have dual ability and can show up again, but this one, if I could find it, is not such. I was just looking at it. But that's period 2, so I don't know where I hit it. It's hard. I don't have a lot of... There we go. Yeah, that's the Treaty of Tordesillas. That doesn't have a second event. So that /R means there's going to be a revolt. We haven't seen one of those, so I wanted to do it. And again, you flip through one of these little books. You look for the right period. You roll up a random country. Mainly major powers in the period. 7, it's going to be against Portugal. Now, there's a modifier to this, which I can't remember what it is. Stability of the country at the time of the revolt. Well, in this case, Portugal's stability is a 3, so we make a roll. At +3, they get a 6. Acores, which I believe is out here, is going to be in revolt. And I put a little revolt marker there. I've got to check the strength of the revolt, though. It's going to be a weak revolt with a minor general. The minor general provides some advantages or disadvantages to attempts to quell that revolt. So here's another little problem for Portugal. Portugal's got an economic issue as well as this to kind of hinder them a little bit. They were doing pretty well. Well, we had another revolt show up here in Carinthia. Now, minor revolts supposedly are just squelched automatically, but I don't like that during a war. Because you see, a revolt can have a nice effect on other people being able... Basically, they provide support for you to move into an area. So there's some advantages, in my mind, to letting them actually have to be suppressed if the minor is at war. So I kind of fudge that rule a little bit, and that's going to stay there if the Habsburgs don't suppress it until they're either out of the war, could grow over their whole country and knock it out, though. as well. Okay, but on the other side, we had one more event, which is the Austrian inherits Hungary-Bohemia. Now, this is a very, very changed event in the Risto rolls. In this case, well, Hungary exists, so it plays out. It would not play out at all if the Hungarian king was killed. Then Bohemia would remain a minor state for the entire game, and Austria would never get its claim to Hungary. But this is the naming of the Habsburgs to the Hungarian and Bohemian throne. And in this case, it's going to give the following. At the beginning of period 2, which is, 3 more turns after this, well, 4 more really, if a D result, which is a destabilization, comes up, I have to try to remember this, because instead of that destabilization, this takes place. And Hungary and Bohemia become annexed to Habsburgs in Austria. The minors are removed from play. Hungary or Bohemia, if they're at war, then the Habsburgs Austria are made at war with them. Or the enemy has to declare a white peace. They have that option. And from then on, Hungarian units become a part of the Austrian army for all respects, and the basic forces of Hungary are added to those of Austria. This will give Habsburgs in Austria a permanent casus belli against any power that owns provinces that belong to Hungary at the game's start. This also covers Hungary, Transylvania, blah, blah, blah. Now, I've got an iffy thing here. I think it's kind of weird that Bohemia wouldn't be inherited even if Hungary fell. I know it's a single monarchy, but anyway, as it stands, this is triggered and in place. So if it, something's going to happen, the Habsburgs have that claim to the Hungarian throne and the Bohemian throne for that matter, which is cool because Bohemia is one of their electors. Not much changed in diplomacy here on turn 3. Some thoughts, but nobody was really willing to come in, like England wasn't willing to come in against France, for example. The French supported a Venetian attempt to move the papacy out of Spain's hands, but Spain spent their $20 and got that. So they'll be getting $50 again this turn, and they'll probably be taxing the Netherlands again this turn. They need the money. They really need it. The only real shift was Tuscany moved on to the French royal marriage box and gave them a few bucks. The French paid, they have a bonus on Tuscany because of the Naples event until that's finished up, which is this war, until this war finishes. All right. I guess we go to the fun of the economic phases. Well, I'm beginning to hit my stride in terms of recording things. I finally started recording the income, and right now I've got a guesstimate here as to where, this is what I'm going with, but as to where everybody is in terms of improvement in their income. So for example, England's improved both turns, and they made $299, so I got 2 pluses over them. That'll indicate that they get a stability bonus this turn, which means if they figured out, like, to build a colony, well, it won't really cost them. And that's kind of sweet. Okay, but I did notice something that I didn't mention. It hasn't come into effect yet. One of these many little things. It's not just 2 pluses in a row that gets you a bonus, but 2 minuses in a row drops your stability point. So you got to be real careful here. Now, luckily that's not likely to happen unless you're really losing a war. Or your stability is dropping and you start taking these percentage hits. So you kind of, if you can't keep your stability high, and Turkey got kind of lucky because from the loss of their pashas, they actually gained income compared to what they lost from their 10%. So overall, I think they netted out at a positive, so I'm giving them a plus. They need the help this game. They're really kind of tanking. Actually, a lot of players are. It doesn't look terribly good for anyone, even Portugal, who's kind of been left alone. Well, they haven't made it over to Goa yet and started setting that into play. And that can be kind of tricky. They don't have a lot of colonies, a lot of holdings anywhere. They've not been able to expand. But Spain is in a lot of trouble with this war with France and with no colonies placed yet. Of course, they have a -3. So here's the thing. Every player, when they put their first colony down, except Portugal, has a -3 to their chance. And then their second attempt, if they failed the first, a -2, and then a -1. And eventually they're at even from then on. Even if they do succeed, though, they get to be at even from then on no matter what. So it's not terribly unlikely that the Spanish won't be able to instill one in the first turn. But in 2 turns, that's... I mean, first turn they won't. But if they don't get one this turn, we know we've got a problem, right? France, you know, they'd love to be building their country up to prepare for other things, but they're tied up in this war, and they feel like they had to. England's not doing badly at all. England never does too badly, it seems. And Venice is actually doing okay, too. We're not doing anything great, but the fact that the Mamluks aren't losing this war is a big plus for them. They have a lot of points on that. All right, let's see where we go. All right, working my way through the economic phase. Something happened where people are building up some armies. Spain and France have trouble. They don't have a lot of money, and I haven't rolled up the miners yet. Turkey also has built up another army to fight. Both England and Venice, normally fairly peaceable countries, have built up armies. It's as though they want to play in this military world. I've seen Venice do quite well in Italy in this kind of situation. But these are different victory conditions and different events. They don't have the pick that says, from the old one, maybe there's one in the new rules, but they don't have the pick that gives them provinces in Italy necessarily. Anyway, it's just for controlling their home areas. But there is an advantage to grabbing territory. So what we have is the Dutch have raised themselves up to a monopoly status, which Portugal also has. This causes something called a forced competition, or a constrained competition. Portugal has an FTI of 2. Unfortunately, this is counted as their home area. I didn't realize that. Well, so that gives them a 5. The Dutch have a 4 at this point. Now, what happens in a constrained competition, or any competition really, I think, I'm not sure about that. We look at this, competition against a trading fleet, it's going to be FTI plus investment minus DTI. Now, you need success to stay, and these are real losses. Normally competitions, if you pay for them, are just sort of temporary losses like piracy is. Okay, so let's see. So we're going to be at 4 minus 3 is the 1 table. And there's 3 people not involved. That's a -3 on it. And then for the Portuguese, it's a little better. -3, 3 on the 1. That's a 1/2. Okay, the Dutch survive. And the Portuguese almost certainly survive. They've got to keep rolling, because somebody's got to collapse. You can't have 2 partial monopolies in there. They both survive. Okay, I think they both failed there. Alright, so we know that the Dutch fail. What about the Portuguese? They were at 5 at -3. Yeah, that's a 1's always going to be a failure. So both sides are going to lose a point, and that kills the Portuguese monopoly, which was producing victory points and money. I have to remove that from their economy. Another option would have been to go for the English. Actually, the Portuguese had 5 levels there instead of 4, so dropping 1, they still keep their monopoly, which is really awesome for them. The Dutch definitely shouldn't have played where they did, but, you know, usually you don't know what your opponents have there. You don't often ask. All right. Now I got to roll up the miners. And that's done. The Habsburgs didn't get a terrific roll. They filled out their forces, but really have nothing new. They didn't get a leader. The Mamluks, on the other hand, well, they got a new big army, a couple new detachments. They can't build them here where they're sieging, but they're in a position where they can by the way, Iraq is part of Persia right now, where they can probably, they're taking an offensive stance. They're hoping that they can actually smash the Turks and win this war. Venice is feeling very, very good about it. Okay, I hate splitting this because I kind of wanted to do it all in one video, but you know, I just think when there's wars going on and everything, it's going to be really, really tough to do that. So here we are at the beginning of the rounds, and we'll start that next time. But I promise you, it's going to be 2 videos this time. And during the quiet turns, it'll be one a turn max. I hope. All right.